Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now March 21st of 2025, and given that Disney's Snow White is already set to be by far one of their worst failures in the past couple of years, based on not just the projections, but also previous critics that once supported their overall Disney films are now beginning to actually go against Disney, and are really sharing their true emotions over this film and exactly how they felt about the movie, and it's not looking good for Rachel Zegler. It's most certainly not looking good for director Mark Webb and writer Greta Gerwig, who were the creators behind this movie, and a whole lot more. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new, and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now, we know that there are many still on the damage control train. We have Bob Iger, we have Rachel Zegler defending this movie at all costs to really kind of prop up this movie to make it sound like it's a whole lot better than what it really is. And that's basically what their mission is right now, to diminish the backlash as much as possible. That's ultimately what they want to do, and even Disney fans are beginning to walk out on this film. That's how bad it was to some hardcore, die-hard Disney fans that support every single live-action remake out there, that support anything that is made by Disney, and that's when you know you have a real true problem when it comes to Snow White 25. However, when it all dwindles down to Rachel Zegler and her overall behavior toward the critics, toward the god-awful reviews out there that are just abysmal, they are not working in Disney's favor at all, period, and once you get the audience reviews coming in, that's only going to make matters worse for the Disney company, because it's going to create negative word of mouth, obviously, to the point that they're not going to get as many, foots in the door to go into the theater seats. But I digress. Let's move on from all of this. Now, with critics that previously supported Disney with their other films already are turning their back on Disney and handing out poor reviews for Snow White starring Rachel Zegler. Now, one significant development that's going on right now involves more damage control coming from Zegler, yet again over the film in the midst of the abysmal reviews coming even from die-hard fans. Now, Rachel went on to deliver the following in a desperate move to convince the public to see Snow White. I think when you take a closer look at the core of this story, she says, it's educational. It's an educational piece on society, and that is something to be cherished since this is a story of what it means to be a powerful, strong leader fighting for the people. One thing that we will all know, and one thing that we all knew coming into this was there were, of course, going to be a lot of critics, because, everyone wants to be a critic in this day and age. It's 2025 now. You just can't trust reviews anymore because of fandom culture and how easily upset people get over a fictional tale. We changed source material, and that's all there was to it, and you are going to get critics over that for sure, but it's a very poor critique. I don't think people are really looking at the center of the story and the lesson that is to be taught in this film. It's a great fairy tale of a woman who aims to take back her kingdom and its followers, and it truly respects how so many feel in this country today. Greta Gerwig is an amazing activist and writer who really wanted to share the same thing I did with this film, and when you are dealing with phony supporters and critics that want to criticize anything, you are just always going to get negative feedback. It doesn't necessarily make it true. There truly is a silent majority out there that loves and supports this film all the way through and what it supports, and also what it teaches to the public, not just for the US, but for the entire world. It's a story that deserves a lot of attention that it was built for, because this is a Snow White fit for modern women. We just had to make that change and show everyone the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we are seeing very loud people out there that reject that outright, and I just think that's wrong, and DEI should be respected because it's what contributes to a successful piece of art, whether it's film or television as a whole. Now guys, before I move on about what Zegler is trying to go into damage control over, she's obviously trying to protect their overall version of Snow White that is obviously driven by an ideology. It is driven by the typical Disney messaging, and that's exactly why this movie is just not working in Disney's favor. However, all agendas aside, this story is a very weak story, where you even have Disney fans walking out on this thing, alright? People weren't really too fond of the pacing of the film. The first act, had something there, but then it just fell off a cliff after that. And a lot of that, by the way, had to do with the reshoots, it had to do with the continuity errors, it had a lot to do with the failed test screenings that led to the editing team mixing and deleting and reinserting scenes all over the place. This is why the pacing in this movie is off the charts and not in a good way. And so that's when you realize that not only is it a bad story, but it also has an agenda attached to it, and that is a recipe for disaster. It truly is for the Disney company, and that's what they're dealing with right now in 2025. Now look, we know that this movie obviously is going to have some supporters out there that will see this film and rave about it no matter what. That's just a given fact. But the fact that you have Disney fans that supported The Little Mermaid in 2023 that are actually not actually supporting this movie, it tells you something. It shows you a sign of the pattern of what's being created right now, of how people are reacting to this movie in general. And for Rachel to go as far to say that, you know, you really can't trust reviews anymore, that there's a lot of fake critics out there, a lot of phony fans, blah 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 blah. We've all heard this before from Leslie Headland and with her show, The Acolyte series. You guys may recall, she said literally the same exact thing. In fact, I would not be too shocked if Rachel got some pointers from Leslie Headland, but talking about the silent majority and how there are a ton of supporters out there that just don't want to review this thing in, you know, fear of being pointed at, like she says, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Moving onward, she goes on to conclude, you just can't trust critics anymore because there is this bias, you know? Critics are very biased these days, and for sure, I think politics has something to do with that. But that's the obstacle that you have to get through. You have a lot of loyal Disney fans that just don't want to share their opinions about this movie because they don't want to be pointed at. We have seen so many examples of films that carry a silent majority, and it's something that I think needs to be acknowledged to give other actresses out there like myself the reassurance that they need that the films that they work on aren't as criticized as they seem. So basically, they're trying to twist the negative reviews as inauthentic, not real, and that the silent majority out there is just not speaking up because they are afraid of being pointed at, they're afraid of being getting labeled as this or that, right? That's basically what it boils down to. And look, this is literally Rachel Zegler parroting Leslie Headland. I pointed this out like a minute ago, but this is exactly what happened with that series on Disney Plus and how terrible it was, how it led to a lot of reviews, you know, coming in from authentic people that just did not approve of Disney's Star Wars take on The Acolyte, what Leslie Headland did with that story, and you're witnessing almost the same exact thing here when it comes to the damage control for Snow White. Expect to hear more from Mark Webb or even Greta Gerwig in the coming days, I'm sure. Be prepared for that because they're going to hop on the train as well to really enter into damage control over this movie as much as they can to just water down the backlash, to make it seem like everything's fine and okay, go ahead and see our movie. And that's basically their overall goal right now. That's the overall task that they want to complete. But overall, I would like to hear what everyone has to say about everything related to the Snow White box office, the reviews, the critics out there. You have, of course, Bob Iger, you got Rachel Zegler, Mark Webb, and Greta Gerwig beginning to defend this movie at all costs, and it's not going to work in anyone's favor over at Disney, that's for sure. If anything, it's only going to make things worse, and it's really going to show you that they are truly afraid about the performance of this movie. But overall, I would like to hear what everyone has to say about this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.